Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another edition of What's Up Wrestling. And I have two great wrestling minds here with me and reporters. Scott Fishman, as you know from TV Insider, who's been with me on all the latest What's Up Wrestling. And we welcome back Candace Cordelia from PWI et al. How are you guys?
Good.
Doing good.
Candace again for this great occasion.
It's a big occasion. You know, whenever we all in the wrestling world, when PWI comes out with their top 500 of the year, everybody's like, who's got it? Who's the, who's going to be on the list? Where are they going to be ranked? Candace, now you have working at PWI. I see your name is on the list of contributors for this. So can you give us a little insight of how this is all, like how it all comes to be? How do the rankings all kind of be? But I will show this. This does tell you the criteria. So do you want to elaborate on that for us a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you can see, there are certain criteria that we adhere to. Thanks for putting that up because it is important. And I know it's been such a controversial subject because you'll see your favorite wrestler on the list or maybe not on the list and you're wondering what is going on. Why are they not on the PW 500? But we have to adhere to certain things that have been there for years before, either myself and Scott have been a part of PWI. So some of that criteria has to do with their in-ring ability and the achievements that they've made, but also we look at the year. So there is a certain time period where a wrestler is eligible for being a part of the PW 500. And if they are not within that year span, unfortunately, they cannot be on the list. And I know this particular criteria has been controversial because you'll have a wrestler that in real time happening as the list is being formulated, they're really hot. The booking is really solid. But honestly, sometimes it doesn't fall within that PWI ranking criteria. So
I just want to clarify the evaluation period this year is August 1st, 2023 to July 31st, 2024. Is that always the period? It's like, what this reminds me of, you guys, like the Grammy Awards. The Grammy Awards eligibility is cut off by like September, and we don't have the awards till February. What happened to so-and-so's song? Like, why aren't they in there? So it's kind of, I liken it to that, but go ahead.
That's really a great analogy, actually. You're the first person to say it in such a simplistic way where it makes sense. And that's exactly what it is. You have that certain time period. And if it doesn't fall in that time period for the wrestler, then unfortunately we can't, put it into consideration. But this year, I think the time period, sometimes it fluctuates. It really depends. And it might fluctuate like between a day or so, just depending on, and I can't really quite remember why that happened. I think this year it's been pretty consistent from previous years, but it's not a huge we're going to do it from say March until December. It doesn't fluctuate that heavy on a consistent basis. But this year it's been, this list is obviously it's out. People have been chattering about it. It's it's like Christmas for wrestling, to be quite honest.
Not for Kevin.
Yeah.
For the holiday.
But now it is the win-loss record, championships won, quality of competition, major feuds, prominence within the wrestler's promotion, and overall wrestling ability. Now, Scott, have you also participated in this every year, or what?
No, I'm always fascinated. Maybe Candace can, shed a little bit more light for people on, because people are just looking at a list and they're kind of just assuming, oh, these are just throwing this list together. But I know a lot of time, a lot of care, a lot of arguments go into making this list something that, that the staff is proud of. So I was curious, Candace could provide some insight on, what goes on in these meetings. Are there like big, whiteboards, and are they like things like that?
What goes on in the meetings, Candace? Is there like a lot of secrets?
You're like, what goes on in the hallowed halls of PWI? Well, there are committees of certain staff members who are available to sit on the panel, and we kind of just powwow together. This year is the first year since I've started that I wasn't a part of the committee. I wrote wrestling bios, a good amount of them, but due to my time schedule, I wasn't able to be a part of it. But there's a lot of emails that go back and forth, And usually we sit around, well, it's a virtual roundtable because everyone at PWI we're scattered all over the world. So we can't, we're all over the place, literally internationally. So we get together and we just talk about, we try to, it's a long process. I mean, I believe the last time that I was in the meeting, I think it lasts like maybe 2 hours. It's a really long process. Sometimes it can go longer, but we try to at least hash out, the top 50. And what that means is we go through the criteria, and then we have kind of a baseline of who we think the top 5 is going to be, and then we have to just hash it out. We really just go around and say, okay, what do we think about this person being in this spot, so forth and so on. And sometimes for the years that I've been a part of PWI, I don't think there haven't been really heated, contentious debates. I think maybe 2 years ago, it was a little bit hard. And
nobody pile drived anybody in the room?
No, unfortunately, no. No, but I think 2 years ago, it was really hard. There was a time period where we were just like really at a loss, and we were going back and forth between the top 5, if I remember correctly. But it seems like last year was pretty simple. This year, it seems like it was, a simple vote.
I have a question for you. Yes.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. So once you get past, let's say, the top 50, then you've got, 450 other places, placements. So how does it go as you get lower down on the list? Are people just like, how is that determined? Are they doing a point system?
No. As far as I know, there's no point system. We just still go through the criteria. Everyone has a chance to put forward the names that they would like for everyone to powwow against. So we all have, as far as I'm concerned, like names that we're thinking, okay, let's push these forward towards, Kevin, who's the editor-in-chief, and Al Castle and Brian Solomon, et cetera, and have them take a look at these names. But for the most part, when we get to the meeting, it appears that, a good amount of that top 40, 50, the baseline is there, and then we're just coloring it in. By the time we get down to like 250 and beyond, we're not just slapping names down to slap names down into slots. They're still looking at the criteria portion, but it does get harder because you have to look at, I refer back to things like Cage Match and looking at certain matches and thinking about, well, okay, within this time period, who was getting a lot of great booking, who was getting those in-ring achievements, like what were they like in the ring, what was happening at this time period. And sometimes I even forget and I'll miss out in terms of that time period, and I'll say a name and then it'll be like, oh, they're not eligible because XYZ. So even when it gets down from 200 on, it's still hard. We still have to make sure that we're placing people in spots that we think are deserving. And, we're not just putting names to fill in slots and just say, okay, we're just going to put these names in as favorites. There is no favoritism. It really is just making sure we put the people down who are deserving based on the criteria.
I think for me, I would want to be, talk about being number 1. Number 500 is always a coveted spot too, because you're like, who's gonna be at everyone's like looking in the middle, but then you look all the way down and you're seeing memes and like, okay, like I made it. I made the top 500.
Right.
So I think that's always a fun.
Yeah, it's a big thing. Now we're going to get into like the top 10, and we're going to talk about who you feel is like, after the top 10, who you think is not placed great. But like, where is, I don't see, is Roman not in here at all?
I don't believe so, but that's because he wasn't, as far as
he wasn't on after Wrestle, like he wasn't. Yeah,
exactly. And I know, when I went on social media, because I checked a little bit, I don't think I saw anyone who was really like, oh my gosh, Roman's not on here, because I think it's pretty much obvious that he wasn't going to be placed due to his position of not, having those matches. I did see some people batting against the idea of having Cody at number 1, which baffles me, but everyone has their opinion. Everyone's going to have their opinion. They're going to have their say. But to me, it was like number 1. I mean,
that was a no-brainer. Yeah,
it really was.
Well, let's get to number 1 in a minute. I want to ask you guys. Hold on, I just screwed this up. I want to ask you guys about some of these. So at number 10 was Mystico. Now, why is he at 10? Do you think this is a good rating for him, Scott?
I was pleasantly
shocked.
surprised to see Mystico on the list, but he's such a legend in Mexico and had such a great year. And then he's actually been showing up on MLW a lot. So he's kind of putting himself out there, and you see him on AEW. So he's definitely racking up those matches throughout the year. So I was, it just shows you how, it's the criteria really dictates how people.
Right. I was going to say that too. It's the criteria. What did you think of that, Candace, him at number 10? Mystico.
I wasn't mad at it at all, because just like what Scott said, we're seeing more of Mystico on AEW. He's racked up those matches. And I think it also proves the fact that we're looking internationally. Wrestling is international. And that's also what makes it hard to make these lists, because there are so many talented wrestlers all across the world. But in terms of the luchador and, places like CMLL in Mexico, et cetera, I mean, there's a lot of great things happening in Mexico. There's a lot of great wrestling going on, and Mystico has been at the forefront of that for quite some time. So I think that this spot was well-deserved, and also it puts a spotlight on Mystico and makes people think, oh, maybe I should, if I'm not familiar with him and his work, maybe I need to take a chance and check out what he's doing.
I think a lot of times it gets, there are some amazing, like Mystico and others that stand out among the rest. But sometimes I think people get lost, like, well, which luchador is this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, they all have cool masks, and I don't know who's who, Exactly. But he's great. All right. Number 9 is Gunther. Do we agree with the 9th placement for Gunther, or do you think he should have been higher or lower? Scott.
I think, I'm not going on Cage Match and looking up win-losses and doing my analysis. So just looking at Gunther and the impact that he made with the Intercontinental Championship, I actually was surprised he was a little lower than I thought. I would have put him a little higher. Yeah, so I was surprised about that one.
Candace,
yeah, and definitely, if I was in that committee, I would have been fighting for Gunther to be higher.
We love you, Candace. Poor Gunther. We need to send him some flowers.
Gunther, exactly. Love him and what he's done within the year. I mean, I have to go back and really consider why, what was the reason and process. I'm sure there was a good reason for it, but then I looked at other folks and I was thinking, oh, they're higher than Gunther. I don't know. I don't know if I'm really vibing with this, but I'm happy he's in the top 10. Like, that's absolutely deserving. He's had a phenomenal year.
He's such an amazing star, in the sport, that I thought he would be higher. He's had an amazing year. And did you guys see the Bret Hart Gunther angle on?
Yeah.
First of all, I love Bret Hart. I do. And so it was like, and I kind of feel for Bret Hart because I'm that old, I'm old. It's like, I love kind of trudging through it. And everybody's, I was very touched to see him. But Gunther had the thing like, you're my second favorite wrestler next to Bill Goldberg. I died. I was like,
yeah.
They said that.
I think that just shows Bret Hart actually has a really good sense of humor. I don't know if people realize that or not, but he's a funny guy. So I think he was like, yeah, let's do it. He knows pro wrestling business. He knows what we get a reaction, and I'm sure he was all for it. So it was great to see him have that moment with Natalya, and Natalya coming back and then being like, this is a night for you, Natalya. I loved the whole thing. It was great to see him. He actually looked better than he did years ago. He's going through all that medical stuff, and then apparently he was under the weather going into Raw on Monday. So I was like, wow, I thought he did a really good job. And
I did too. And I get so worried for Bret, because of the head and all the everything he's been through. I'm like, because I'm a big Bret Hart. I loved Bret Hart. I did. Yeah. I thought he was great. Okay. Number 8. I don't understand. Jon Moxley, which we're going to get into later about what happened on AEW All Out and Dynamite. But was he there? Because he left. You guys, he was there during the eligibility period. Because I don't understand why he's 8. I would have placed him lower. What do you disagree?
Well, you got to consider his work also with New Japan Pro Wrestling, where he was doing a lot of going to Japan, putting in the work, defending his championship that he had there. So I think a lot of that has to do with what he was doing there more
Absolutely.
than it happened to do with AEW.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, because especially with the wrestlers at AEW, people have to remember that they're not just wrestling for AEW. They're all over the map. They're going to Japan. They're going here. They're going there. They're going back to certain shows in the indie circuit. So all of that definitely leads into why Mox was this much higher on the list. And even though it might seem like, oh, we haven't seen him on AEW television for quite some time, he's still been wrestling.
He was there during the time period you're talking about. He was there.
Yeah.
I just in my head, taking New Japan into account, you're right. But I was like, oh, I don't.
Because I think he takes those breaks, and then it's like he's been taking those long breaks. But he's been doing his thing. So absolutely.
MJF!
Great transition.
I kind of like MJF over us. It's kind of cool. He's number seven. So I think he's lower this year, right? Because he was higher last year, right?
What I understand, yeah. But he was out for quite some time. So
Scott, what do you feel about 7 for MJF at this eligibility?
I'm sure he's not going to like that placement one bit. I'm sure we're going to hear about that as the days go on. But
I think it's going to be tomorrow.
I mean, I'm okay with that placement for him. I mean, he was a great AEW champion, but like you said, he did take some time off. So I think that hurt his standing as far as the rankings were concerned.
Yeah.
And definitely. Candace, where do you stand with it? You're a big MJF fan, are you not?
I like MJF. I always have, even in the indies. Like, there was a point where I interviewed him on the indies, and he's phenomenal. He's
amazing. Great wrestler.
I think also with him is he doesn't have a lot of he didn't have a lot of matches as far, like, he makes every match matter, and because of that, he doesn't wrestle every week. So I think that also played into account.
But Candace makes an amazing point. Like, wrestler for wrestler, he's an amazing wrestler. That's the thing. Even though he's excuse me, that was MJF saying, "Why am I number 7? Why am I number 7, Michael?" But I was gonna say he's amazing in the ring, and he's amazing on the mic. But again, it didn't feel like MJF's big year, right? Because he was gone for some of it, right? Number 6, Damian Priest, which I think was well deserved. Do you not? Or are you against number 6, Scott, for Damian?
Oh, well, first off, could you pick a more melancholy photo of him there? He's like pondering his life. I think I think Damian had a great year. Obviously, a breakout year with what happened with Judgment Day and winning the big heavyweight championship. And I mean, I just saw his documentary, which really reaffirmed, how much I respect and like Damian Priest for all that all the dues that he paid and the journey that he's had to get to where he is. I just respect him that much more. So totally fine with that. That I think he's at a good spot there.
Candace.
Oh, yeah. His time, agreed on all accounts. I mean, Damian has been around for a long, hot minute. And it's so nice to see him get the spotlight right now with the Judgment Day being one half of the Terror Twins. Like, he's really in his element, in his moment. And I think this spot is super deserved. And I don't think I saw anyone saying anything negative about this. Because Damian's such a hard worker. Like, his star power is undeniable. I really can't, say anything bad about this placement. It's perfect.
Well, I think the placement was perfect. I thought he really deserved this. My concern is after the whole Money in the Bank and the championship run and where we are now, do you think we will see him more even after this whole thing with Rhea? You see him like fade. I don't know if he'll ever get can you see him becoming champion again? I don't.
I mean, it's hard for me to say never, because it goes in ebbs and flows, and there could be another time where he gets hot again. There's another angle. Like, honestly, with Drew McIntyre, I know we're going to talk about Drew, but I just think there was a point where I was like, I don't think this is gonna like he's getting faded out in obscurity, and then he breaks out and has this incredible year right now. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he's gonna get hot again by himself.
Number 5 was Tetsuya Naito. Who? How did
It's
he?
like NATO, not NATO, right?
Not Naito. I'm okay. How did this end? How did he have a number 5? What am I missing? That I'm not in Japan? Like, I don't know. What am I missing
That's
here?
what it is. That's what it is. And even myself included, I'm still learning a lot about the scene in Japan. There's so many fantastic wrestlers who are just kicking tail in Japan and outside of Japan and in so many different promotions. As far as I'm concerned, I know Naito's name has been batted around for a long time. And this year, I believe he's had a standout year. If I were in that committee, if I were in the room during the committee time this year, I would have most likely been schooled, because there's still a lot I'm learning about Naito. But I have no doubt it's probably because his work rate, his matches, who he's been up against this year. If we go on Cage Match and we just check out, I'm sure. In fact, I kind of want to do that because.
Okay, let's do that, because I was like, what's going on?
And it's okay, because this is another thing. A lot of people are still learning about the Japan scene. If you're not like super into it, you just won't know.
It says his top 5 moments were defeated Sonata in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom. After losing the belt to Jon Moxley Forbidden Door, he won it back.
Oh,
he won Japan's prestigious DI Climax tournament for the 3rd time. In his first defense of his reign, he beat Sonata in Japan and retained his title against Yota Tsuji on April 6th.
Yeah,
and I think he's been on AEW, right, a few times.
Yeah, that's
definitely.
I'm scrolling through, and this man has been working. Like it's unreal how many matches. I mean, just scrolling through, I'm like, yeah, it's official. He's been working.
I could be wrong, but I'm looking at this, and it says that he wasn't even ranked last year in the PWI 500. I could be wrong, but
I don't remember his name being on the list last year.
Yeah, so that's pretty awesome.
No, he's great. No, Scott's right. It says not listed in 2023.
Yeah, and now it's not listed. Yep. So
that's pretty insane.
That's insane.
Yeah, he's had a banner year.
Wasn't he number 1 year too? I could be wrong too about that. I don't know. You guys see that, but if not, he was very high. But I swear I saw him either high or at number 1.
It said he was number 2 in 2022.
Oh, there you go, number 2. There you go.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Number 2 in 2022.
That's right.
All right, number 4. Seth freaking Rollins. So last year when he was number 1, I was so happy because I felt he deserved number 1. Like, I had Seth all the way. I was so glad PWI had him in number 1 because he was such a workhorse for that championship with the World Championship. I just thought he was the one. Now, obviously, this year was a bit clunkier, I think, probably, right? So he ended up with 4. Scott, what do you think of Seth freaking Rollins at number 4?
I thought that's pretty high for him for considering his injury and everything. But, obviously the first part of the grading period or the assessment period, he had a very strong showing. I mean, he's been a workhorse for WWE for so many years. He's been that guy that, obviously not surprised that he's ranking right now the way he has, but just showed you the work he put in at the first part of the assessment period that he's ranked so high, because this is a guy who was out for a lot of time. So just shows you the work that he does put in.
Candace, what do you think about Seth at 4?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I mean, just like Scott said, the first half of the year, just firing at all cylinders and just being the amazing wrestler that he is, an amazing promo worker, et cetera, et cetera. And then, things faltered a bit with injury and whatnot. But I think this is deserving. I don't think it's too high.
No, I think it's actually a really good spot for him, and I love Seth Rollins because I just think he's such a worker. He's so hard worker and incredible in the ring. And it'll be interesting to see what happens next with him. All right, yay! I love Will Ospreay. Okay, number 3, Will Ospreay. Scott, should he have been higher, or do you think 3 is the position for him?
Considering the years that Cody and Swerve has had, I think Will is in a good spot. I think that number 3 is worthy of that. What a breakout year he's had with AEW just in the first, 9 months, or I don't even know how many months he's been with the company, but every match has been such a breakthrough match, and everyone, he's been really shining as a personality, but getting that platform on AEW, getting seen rather than just New Japan and audiences, and him coming in for every so often. It's been fun to see him every week for myself. So I think it's a good spot for him.
Candace, number 3 for Will?
Absolutely. Definitely, just like Scott said, his breakout year. And I think he was able to show his skill on a platform, especially for people that were not familiar with Will Ospreay. Like for someone like myself, and I'm not sure for both of you, but for myself, I knew about Will Ospreay pre-AEW, and I've seen him live, and he's phenomenal. So it's just really nice that finally he can show his wares on national television for people who are casual fans, for hardcore wrestling fans, and he's proven himself again and again. Like, he's the type of worker where not only does he shine, but he lets other people shine in the ring too. And it's like every time we see him in that ring, it's magic. Like, he's just that good of a wrestler. And I think 3 is like the best spot for him this year. And it'll be interesting.
You make such a great point, because I knew Will Ospreay way before AEW, and I thought he was the greatest. I still think he's so phenomenal. I cannot tell you how exciting it is every time I know he's coming on to wrestle. I am like, still. And I am so glad he's getting to show what he can do on this scale, and even improve his in skill, mic skills, plus that incredible, incredible. I think this is a once in a lifetime wrestler. I do. I think it's just, he will go down and prove it. So maybe next year he'll be number 1 or 2. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised. All right. Whose house is it? Whose house is it?
Well, he has no house at the moment, but
his house was down. His child at home.
His child at home. Yeah.
His child at home. All right, Scott, number 2, Swerve, who had an amazing year. Amazing.
Yeah, that was an easy decision for me. For Cody, number 1, definitely Swerve at number 2. Just awesome year with being the AEW champion and being the guy that can be depended on, and be that guy, the person in the company at the top. You say that when he just got his contract renewed for, I guess, a really good amount of money or a great deal. So it just shows how much Tony Khan believes in him in the future too. So I don't think it'll be the last time we're going to see him ranked so high. If not, maybe he'll be number 1, also next year. You don't know.
Candace, what's your thought on Swerve? It was just almost like he struck gold. You could see that they were building him up in AEW. He was catching on with the fans in this run. And they did play into, at first, like he was the first black champion, AEW black champion. And I don't remember, is the only other black champion, was that Kofi Kingston? Like, who else has been the world champion?
Well, Big E also won
Big
the
E.
title.
Big E. I was thinking, I think who else?
Bobby Lashley.
Yeah.
That's true.
But the only one in AEW, right? Has been
right. Yes.
Yeah.
Candace, how do you feel about Swerve? Number 2.
I'm glad you brought up that point, Michael, because, for quite some time, especially when the pandemic started and people were really talking a lot about AEW and what they're doing to elevate Black talent. For a moment, I got a little concerned, because I was like, I hope, and a lot of other people were thinking, how long are they going to keep this title on him? Because we've seen before, you get the title and then it's like a hot potato, or it doesn't last long. But I'm really glad, just like you said, that they really allowed Swerve to shine in this way. Tony Khan bet on him. It paid off. He's super over. And, with this storyline that's happening now, even though it's not part of the criteria for, the PWI 500, I really just think it bodes well to see how Swerve is going forward into next year, how that's going to look for him and where he might be placed on the list next year at that. But he's had such a fantastic year. Another person like Ospreay, who's been around for so long, and finally is able to really, show what he's capable of doing on national television. It's awesome. So another spot well deserved for Swerve, definitely.
Right. And I was going to say, to your point, that was my concern when they first gave Swerve the world title. I'm like, please don't tell me you've got this gold here right now with this guy and you're going to make it a short run. And I thank God that they didn't, because I thought the messaging of that would have been bad. Number one, like, you're taking it off this guy, who's a breakthrough artist, breakthrough wrestler on your show. So I was worried about that, but they didn't. They took it to, I guess, where they gave it to Bryan Danielson, but I don't know how I feel about that. Okay, so there's your guy, number one, Cody Rhodes. Did you hear the music I picked on my Instagram story promoting tonight? It's the generic theme. It's the Cody Rhodes theme, but it's a generic, it's a different version of it. And I was like, oh, I hope you guys hear this, because it was really, it's like do 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 do. But it was more like the organ version of, like it was not the real version, like the karaoke version, like do do do. So what do you think, Scott? Obviously,
yeah, that's a layup in itself. I mean, when you look at how he's helped carry the company and represented the company so well, I mean, he is so great with fans, so great with media. He takes so much time out of his day to talk, meeting fans either after shows, before shows, during shows. But as far as like when it comes to the criteria, I mean, obviously such big wins and big title defenses that he's had, especially winning the Royal Rumble and all these other things. So I thought, a no-brainer, obviously, with this.
Yeah.
Candace, was it a no-brainer?
Absolutely. If it weren't Cody, I would be very concerned, because even though there's so much great talent, I mean, this was Cody's year. It was his time. And just like Scott said, he's been such a great worker, like a great company person. Like, everyone loves Cody. Everyone wants to talk with Cody. Whenever you see Cody on television or making appearances, he's just always professional, always amiable. And then you get him in the ring, and it's like the star power is just there. Like, he just exudes star power. And it's really cool seeing the journey that he's had from his start in WWE to what it is now. Like, everything coming full circle. It's just so cool. Like, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't help. It was hard pressed not to root for Cody as we came in. They had built it in a way which was smart, that we had waited and waited and waited, and we had to wait 2 years for the whole go around to WrestleMania to come back around again for him to win the championship and all that builds up of that. And it, by the end of it, if you're a wrestling fan or even a casual fan, you're like sucked into that story. You're sucked into him finishing the story. You were sucked into it, and he delivered on all accounts. Now my question is, do you think he can maintain this? I don't know. It's hard now. He's got the belt, and as Scott and I have talked about, I would like to see him have some more top-notch competitors who see more of a threat to his title than I feel that he's had. So I'm interested to see, where does he land next year? You know what I mean? That was kind of my thought. When you guys look at the 500, who on this list do you feel really is not in the right place, that should have been higher? Is it Drew at 13? Is it like LA Knight at 27? Is it Zack Sabre at 33? Hangman? I mean, who kind of like Dominic, Dirty John at 69?
What a I mean, I didn't even notice that, but that's hilarious.
PWI.
You see it.
I mean, Daniel Garcia is 87. Jacob Fatu is only 94. Darby Allin was 97. Even Matt Riddle was ahead of Darby Allin. Like, where do you think something is not quite how you would see it?
I don't know, but I'm happy to see Billy Starks at number 150. That's it. That was a good one there.
The list is really also great. And that's also proving it's PWI 500 for everyone, with the inclusion of everyone. Just it's all based on the talent, the criteria that you fit, and not based on the gender. So yeah, she made the list. I feel like, and I can't remember where Matt.
You cut out there. Who made the list? You said she made the list. Who did you say?
Billy.
Billy Starr.
Oh, Billy Starr. I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember where Matt Cardona was.
He was lower. Matt Cardona was 77.
He might be someone I would consider to actually be a bit higher. He's had
I think.
What about LA Knight? Logan Paul was 37.
Well, that's because he doesn't wrestle a lot.
He doesn't wrestle that much. LA Knight.
I would, for me, EC3 I think should have been higher. Like he's been. A lot of people aren't talking about what he's been as NWA champion. I think he's done a great job of representing the company there, and doesn't probably get the exposure that he probably deserves. But I would maybe have ranked him a little higher than he is at number 40, just because of what he's been doing as NWA champion.
And Trick Williams at 28. You think that's good?
That's surprising to me.
That's surprising.
Surprising
Orange
to you.
Cassidy at 24.
Alex Kane, though, number 25. That's a high ranking.
That seemed high. Mark Briscoe was 31. Finn Balor was 68.
Jey Uso is definitely going to be higher next year, I got to believe.
Where is Jey Uso on here?
He's number 17.
Oh, right. That seems low. He'll be higher. Samoa Joe at 11, but he'll be. Well, that's because he was on.
Yeah, the champ. Yeah,
he's not even on. Is he even there? Is he hurt?
Who?
Samoa Joe?
Yeah, he's been I think had an injury. He was just at a convention here in Florida last week or so, Fanboy Con or whatever it is. So he got a haircut. He's like completely bald. I don't know if you guys saw it, but he put a nice tweet about it. It's pretty funny if you check it out.
Christian Cage was 29. Eddie Kingston was 20.
I mean, it just shows you how.
We can't hear you. Your mic's off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's off.
It's off. We can't hear you, Mr. Audio.
My mic plugged in. My mic unplugged. I don't know. Michael was trying to censor me, I think.
I was like, what is he saying?
I don't even know what I was saying now, so we'll move on to it.
Well, I before we let you go, Candace, I know you have to go. I just wanted to touch upon AEW All Out and the violence on AEW All Out. And did AEW go too far, or was it good? Was it great? So I'm talking about, obviously, we have, the Bryan Danielson totally got swerved by the BCC. And we had Claudio doing his uppercut, shocking everybody. And then we had the bag.
The infamous bag.
The infamous bag that nobody could talk about and nobody could put on like social media. The shot where Jon Moxley literally tries to choke out Bryan Danielson with the bag. When you were watching this, Scott, unfold, what went through your mind when you saw the plastic bag part? Were you like, oh, this has gone too far? Or were you like, it had to be so despicable to be the heel turn?
Yeah. I didn't have a problem with it because I also get the symbolism behind it, because you're talking about Bryan Danielson, who's always talking about being environmentally friendly and all these things. I don't know if they matter-of-factly wanted to do that, but I think that's how it came off to me, is like the plastic bag is the disrespect.
Yeah. I didn't think of that.
Yeah. So that was my thinking of it.
Wasn't the whole thing that Dory Funk, isn't there been a plastic bag thing that there was this whole thing about plastic bags that Dory Funk did in the day, and it was brought up that one of the wrestlers wanted to do it and they wouldn't let him do it, but now Moxley did it to Danielson. It was pretty violent though, don't you think, Candace, as an image?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit shocking, and I feel like, they know what they're getting themselves into. So at this point, it's shocking to the viewer because we're not expecting it. But I'm like Scott, I understand the symbolism behind it. I understand what it is. And at the end of the day, Tony said he's doing it for the sickos. He's making this for the sickos. So like, we're here. The man wasn't lying.
I was for me the main event.
Well, we're getting to that. We're getting to that.
So this was tame compared to that. That's what I'm saying.
This was tame, a little shocking. This was tame. Then we go to the main event with Hangman, Page, and Swerve. And we get the final moment where you're like, he pulls the grill out. He goes and pulls a hypodermic needle out. And I'm like, in my head, I'm first like, wait, is he injecting him with like Novocaine? Like what's
That's what I was thinking, Novocaine. Yeah.
Right? I was like, are they injecting
Where's Britt Baker? Shouldn't she be the one to be distributing this?
Right.
I was like, DMD's coming. So I thought he's sticking it in, and I'm like, but then I'm hearing later it was just the point of putting a needle in there. There was nothing in it. So I thought he was drugging him, with a syringe, and then did the chair shot. And that chair shot was like a legit chair shot, like that you're not supposed to. It was so hard, but obviously they're all okay. So what did you think of that level of violence, Scott? And were you at all cringy over it?
So I'm there's so many ways to do professional wrestling presentation, and I'm not gonna like all of it, just like other people aren't gonna like all of it. Did I like them going that far? I feel like it wasn't necessary. It's kind of like a little bit too over the top for me. But I get what they're trying to do with it. Like they're trying to drive home the seriousness and how crazy Hangman Page is and the lengths that he's going to go to take out his enemy. It makes me think, but where's the line? Where's the line though? Where like you're going to go this far and you're going to come up with different ways. What's going to happen where Swerve comes back? Is he going to light him on fire? I mean, it's just, are you trying to get more sponsorships? I could see the business side too. So I worry about that. Like I get, you're trying to separate yourself from WWE and do things that they're not able to do. But that also happens in ECW, and ECW business wise, you saw what happened with that. So I think it's definitely a fine line, but it is pay-per-view. It's not on, the regular show. So, there's that. So I'm just interested to see the rebound and the follow-up when it comes to these.
You make a really great point. Like what is enough too far? Like what, if you've done this and you've taken it up to here, what do you do to, isn't the next thing creative? Oh, we got to top ourselves. What kind of level would you go to next? Candace, what did you think about the syringe grill, hit the chair shot, and violence?
I mean, it took me. I've seen spots like that and worse, like on some indie shows like that. And believe it or not, this was shocking, but some of the things that I've seen on these indie shows would make that just look like child's play. I mean, just like Scott said, it's a pay-per-view. It wasn't on TV, so you do have some like leeway with these things. But at the same time, I also agree. It's like, when is enough enough? And then when I see spots like that, I'm just thinking, well, in the grand scheme of the storyline, how is this fitting and how is this helping to elevate, this chapter of the story moving on to the next chapter? Because once you've crossed this line, like what are we going to see like on television for Dynamite? How is this going to fit in? It has to all fit in,
Yeah, and you make a really good point, because on Dynamite, they had Hangman come out. Now you're like, all right, where are they going to go with Hangman now? If his feud is supposed to be over with Swerve, and he's still crazy and insane, and like, and now he goes after Jeff Jarrett and throws people, and I'm like, so we're just going to have this crazed. Because here's the deal. I was a big fan of the good guy Hangman, probably the only one, but I really liked Hangman Page. I liked him. And this guy is so like, what is this? So you see him like continuing this barbaric type of stuff with other wrestlers? No?
I guess that's where they're going to be. But like you said, and you make a great point as well in turn, it's like, all right, so if this is who he's going to be, this super barbaric, unhinged heel, like, where are you taking it? How far? I mean, at this point, I'm thinking, well, we've already seen him set a house on fire. Like, what else are you gonna do? Like,
what's enough? Yeah, that's the question.
Right.
Well, Candace, thank you so much for being with us tonight and giving us your insight as part of PWI of what is always everyone looks forward to seeing where they rank, and we all love to talk about it. So thank you so much for being here tonight.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, guys. Always a pleasure. Can't wait to be back.
All right. We'll talk to you later. Bye. And now we have a very special guest from MLW. Please welcome Delmi Exo. Hey. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for being here with us. You know, you have a very big match coming up. Very big match coming up. Against Janai Kai, the Taekwondo Rules match this Saturday at MLW Live. So what is your thought on this match, Delmi? Are you worried? Are you going in confident?
I do think it's a little interesting how we're, kind of doing a match stipulation that definitely is leaning closer to how Janai's skill set is, but I'm not going to complain about that. You know, I can only put my best foot forward and give it my all, which she's got a lot coming at her. I've been having to study up on the rules of Taekwondo and having to come up with new strategies for this match, which is a lot of preparation, more so than what I'm used to.
I was going to ask how are you been preparing, and then what can you say about how this match is going to go as far as, are we going to have a special referee? Like, what can you tell us about that kind of thing when it comes to Taekwondo rules? Can you kind of explain that a little bit?
Right, so everybody knows kind of what to expect.
Yeah, so with Taekwondo, it is mostly like a kick, strike type of match. So you do earn points, but you also can get points taken away from you if you do illegal hits. So just because kicks are the name of the game doesn't mean that you can throw any of the kicks out there. So there is different rules with blocking, with, using your legs to block, using your legs to hit your opponent on certain body parts. They are going to definitely explain the rules for the live crowd and the crowd watching on the pay-per-view day, which is Saturday. And we are going to be having our regular ref. He does thankfully have knowledge in Taekwondo rules type of matches. Preparation-wise, I'm just kind of, going into it, practicing my best kicks rather than trying to learn all kicks. As you probably are aware, fear not the person who has 1,000 kicks, but the person who's practiced 1,000 times.
1,000 times. How did you end up getting into this in the beginning? What inspired you to go into wrestling and go into what you're now doing? Who inspired you?
I was a fan growing up as a kid. It was something I watched. My older sister was looking to get into training, and it was the summer right before senior year for me of high school. And so I went along with her to a school that she was riding up with, and I signed up the same day.
And, you talk about your sister. I mean, how is it kind of to share this journey with her? A lot of, people go into this business and it's very, on your own, solo. You and your sister had such a great fan following with the the Sea Stars and everything like that, and a lot of fans are like looking to potentially see that again. But talk about just how important it was to have each other to lean on.
I think having someone at the start of it and really having your own circle right away, and someone you can trust and someone you can rely on mentally and emotionally throughout it was probably the best for me. I feel like I've had the same circle of friends since the start of my wrestling career as I have today, which not a lot of people can say. I'm truly thankful for that. They're some of my biggest supporters. I'm super supportive of them and their careers. And yeah, I'm probably one of the few lucky people who can say that I have the same friends today as I did 8 years ago.
Is there a match in your career that you've had, professional career, that took you to the limit that you're like, oh my God, this was an incredible match. I'm so proud of this match. Or, you know, what is your takeaway that you're like, this really either showed what you could do best or you thought overall was a great match for you?
So one I would say would be my match with Miyu Yamashita, the first time at Melrose Ballroom, and that was with MLW. But another match I had before that was with Emi Sakura. Was out
Love her.
Yeah.
Grind, and that was like a much longer match. So that one personally was the one that like really like turned my head around for myself and like was like, I can go further than what I thought I was capable of. I kind of was like, it was actually right before I got brought in with MLW again and signed. And so I hadn't had anything big come up for myself as a singles wrestler. And that was the first thing that felt like gave me that confidence to really push forward with myself. And then lo and behold, a few months later, I get signed with MLW and we're on this journey now.
You talk about the world featherweight title. I think is interesting that MLW has that as opposed to the traditional, women's world championship. Being champion before, how is it for you? I feel like MLW still has a lot of potential when it comes to a women's division, as they kind of are slowly trickling it in. They're kind of, rather than kind of throwing everyone in there at once, it seems like they're building up the personalities that they have before they slowly start adding more. So talk about that strategy compared to what we see at other promotions, and what's kind of the mindset, or what's your viewpoint when it comes to the way that MLW showcases the women?
Well, I feel like it's a small little learning pool that is getting built together. We're kind of like working with different talent now that we're touring. We are able to bring in more characters and more talent that is in that area, which is amazing. Last time we were in Atlanta, we were able to bring in, Danny Jordan, who is coming back onto the indie scene and coming back in. And it's cool because Danny Jordan is someone who I had done like the extra work for AEW with back in the pandemic era. So seeing her again was kind of cool. And it's nice to see us be able to use different local talent when we're touring more. We're getting out there around so far it's the Northeast side and the South, but getting to trickle in those personalities, like you said. And it'll be interesting to see kind of who we add on to our rotation and who we get to build around versus throwing a bunch of personalities in there at once. And now maybe the audience doesn't have a chance to, get to know one person before they're introduced to the next. I really like the way we're like taking our time and making the most out of each character before we, next person in. And then it's kind of like you feel like someone might get just like pushed to the back.
You mentioned that you were, early on as a kid, you watched wrestling. Like, who is the ultimate female wrestler that is your idol? Did you have a couple that are like you look at and go, oh my God, they're so great? Like, who is it for you? That
I have too many that it's hard to choose because like, everyone always goes to like Trish and Lita.
Trish,
yeah. So for me, like saying them as my number one would feel like kind of sad just because I'm like, well, everyone picked them. So like, I don't want the other ones to feel bad. Like for me, I was like, when I was like probably 6, I loved Tori Wilson because she was like the girl who was like pretty and wore pink and had the dog in her purse. And like, I wanted to be that when I was 6 years old, And then as I grew, I was like, oh, like China's cool and she's super jacked. And I was like, well, Gail Kim has like all of these cool moves. And like,
yeah.
I think I'm really obsessed with all of them in a way that like a kid would be obsessed with Power Rangers growing up. Like, like favorites for different reasons. Like I like the divas for different reasons. And I liked watching them all interact.
There you go.
Was there any interaction with any of the, like, everyone talks about their fandom, but what was kind of that for you, like meeting a particular wrestler, and did they kind of give you some advice that you kind of take to this day?
Yeah, I got to meet, it was actually like within the first year that I was training of wrestling. I got to run into Paige and AJ Lee at the mall.
Oh,
To be running an event in Providence Place, like the Dunkin' Donuts Center. And so they were at Providence Place Mall, and I don't know why I didn't think that they would be there, but they were at a mall, and like me and Ashley actually stopped by because we were in the store, and we're like, hey, like we're training, can we just like take a picture with you? And Paige, Soraya now, had
Saraya.
told me, like, just stay hungry and stay humble. And that's something that I've like kept up with to this day. I'm still someone who, like, even when I accomplish something, it's always just like, okay, awesome. What else can I do? I'd never want to be that person who was like, I'm like a 6-time this small pawn promotion champion. You can't talk to me like that, kid. I never wanted to be that veteran. I never wanted to be that person who like hung my hat on like the smallest thing. I was like, what else can I do? What's the next thing?
Career, if you as it evolves, what would you like to ultimately be known for, being a heel or a baby face?
These are hard questions.
Questions.
Interrogation here.
Interrogation. But I'm wondering, where you're at now, like what could you ultimately like? I would like to be known ultimately as a great baby face or a great heel.
Yeah. I feel like in ring, most of the time I am a heel. Like a lot of times if I go somewhere different, like I'm kind of put into the bad guy route. However, in my real life, I feel like I'm a baby face. And I would want to be remembered as like, the person who helped out, the person who like genuinely cared, the person who like wanted to bring people up and like elevate the mood and stuff. And so I have definitely like veered off track for what a god queen probably should be, and like now I'm just a ball of sunshine. White rose baby face. I'm sorry. I'm just always I'm just much more now.
What do you see yourself and your sister having another run together?
Yeah.
It seems like you guys are having your own journey right now, but I think a lot of fans would love to see you guys having another run together.
Yeah, I to wait just because I feel like right now with wrestling there's so much of like instant gratification for fans right now. Wait, like, oh my god, we didn't expect it.
All right.
For the longest time right now, we're gonna just be the Hardys doing our own thing.
And then when we least expect it, when AJ and Saraya are in the ring, you are gonna show up together.
Yeah.
And then the come full circle moment, right?
Yeah.
Well, I thank you so much for spending some time with us. And everybody, it's this Saturday, September 14th in Atlanta, Taekwondo Rules World Heavyweight Title, Janai Kai versus Delmi Exo, MLW. Tickets are on sale now, and it should be. We hope you don't end up too battered from this, and you get some good.
Thank you. Appreciate the love.
All right. Thank you so much for coming by, Delmi.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Scott.
you. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Well, that was nice. There was Delmi. It was great.
Yeah,
So
really cool to see. MLW is building up their women's division a little, and these two have a history, so it's fun to kind of see a rivalry kind of continue with Janai Kai. So it'll be fun to see what happens this weekend.
Well, I thank you, Scott, for being with me tonight on another edition of What's Up Wrestling. We'll be back next Thursday. We'll talk next week about developments on WWE Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, all the other news. We had a lot to get through tonight with the PWI. So it was great talking to you. And thanks, everybody. And I'll see you next week, Scott.
See you next week.